79T 2458 Learning Corp. Little Red Riding Hood. Take 1.
Look at this, fellas. Totally forgot I had the intro for you. We're gonna have a fun one. Not gonna lie. Don't mind the volume levels. We're getting there. Top R of the Red Pill. Tuber, that's adorable. Wando, I see your super chat. Couch, Tita's told Court Frame. Dude, there's gonna be a bunch. You're gonna love this. You're gonna love this. I'm just excited right now. Honestly, Praxeology has been doing so well. We're beaten out. We're not first book Jordan Peterson good yet. We're second book Jordan Peterson good, but I'm humbled by it. And it's Clary, I got to give him a huge shout out. The idea of like take gender studies as your initial category. And it's like, we're officially the #1 gender studies for men textbook on Amazon. We've beat out the 5 love languages. We've beat out The Secret. We've beat out Men Are Miserable Fs. We beat out all of that stuff. And it's just so nice. Honestly, it's been, I want to say it's been a year of work, but it was more like 8 years of work. Thousands of men, tens of thousands of hours, hundreds of thousands of lives being changed. And it's just nice to be able to synthesize that lightning in a bottle so that other people can glean from it, because the internet's disappearing and the stuff's all going away. So if nobody archives the work of a bunch of, bad men, good men, great men, and whatever, then nobody's going to have it. And it would just suck to lose all that stuff to the annals of time. I always call it the annals of time. It makes me laugh, but Twitter's or the terms of service for YouTube, I think that just got us demonetized. Yeah. Ryan's been away from the channel a lot lately. Is he a Bunburyist? I don't know what that even means. So, hey, welcome, Red Morning. If you're new to the channel, like, subscribe, you know the stuff. Merch is available, the Red Morning merch at store.ryanstone.com. Feel free, come on in, check it out. Best thing you can do, though, if you like what you see, like obviously the Don't Eat Paint mugs, which is a running joke. The idea that kids back in the day used to eat paint because the lead was sweet in it. And so everybody put warning labels on the paint saying do not eat. The problem is they started adding that warning labels to everything, so nobody has to think anymore about their own survival and safety and happiness. And it's all just doled out to you like feeding troughs, piggies at the trough. And so the big point of Don't Eat Paint was when it came to like the praxeology of the red pill, like use your head. Just because some guy runs his mouth on the internet doesn't mean you're absolved of, oh, that's okay, Rolo said this. It's like, no, man. You got to think it through. Nico Karango, $2 super chat. Thank you very much, sir. Happy Saturday, Couch. Happy Saturday to you too, sir. Happy Saturday. Here, let's get you guys in here. I feel embarrassed. I invite you to this podcast, but I don't even put you in. There. It's going to be a little bit on the smaller side, but we got a lot of stuff. As you can see, Writer Tears, I cracked it open. I basically stopped drinking after Christmas because I was over it. I drank enough in December to make up for it, but I did pour myself a couple fingers for the release of the book. Last things, it's been a super busy week because obviously take any chance to run your mouth on the podcast you can. Chrissy Mayer and I just did a podcast with her on Thursday, which would be wonderful to check out. She actually pointed out something that I totally had forgotten about, like my blog. I had an old article on Dread prior to writing the book, and it was like full of such outdated information that I have to make that decision. Like, is it worth going back to fix it or leave it there as like that's what it was at the time and just go with it? So it was very interesting to actually talk with somebody who knew what they were doing. Like already, just by reading a couple articles and watching a video or two, she's more knowledgeable about the red pill than half of the guys in the sphere. So anyways, huge shout out for her. I found out she works on Simpcast, which we'll see. Maybe get on there. That'd be kind of neat. But you know me, I'm a huge Brittany Venti fan ever since the time she embarrassed Roosh on that Andy Worski show. Yeah. But she was a good host. She's easy to talk to. Like she's also, it's nice to have somebody who's funnier than you. So that way you don't have to carry the show. Thank God. It's so much better than when Rob's doing his. Also with Zertis. So MK Canada, that was fun. We were talking about the Tartarians and a bunch of conspiracy theory stuff and the train orphans. So that was always nice. I enjoy that stuff. Like, I've always got a soft spot in my heart for the 9/11 can't melt steel beams conversations. So, and they're kind of taxing too. So I kind of like at the end of it where I'm just tired and I just sit there and like purge the Alex Jones from my mind. Coming up in the future though, we're going to make some efforts to get back on Kriegler with Base to Zeph Mondays. Probably even like collaborate more with like Flodzilla, Darth Call, and all those guys. Because honestly, they're actually a really fun bunch of guys, and I'm really glad I got introduced to them. So, and I always feel bad for letting them down, but it's one of those things where I'm just like so busy that I really have to turn down things I would love to do, just for the lack of time. But now that the book is done, the audio book is going to have its thing, and we'll make the time for it. Anyways, enough of that stuff. The topic, as you saw, is how to keep your ass out of jail. It's not even a red pill guide. This is going to be mostly like the Ryan guide on how to stay out of prison, because, and this is where I'm going to get into, let me get the timing here. 6 minutes in. How do I know what I'm talking about? Well, I'm going to get into some daddy issues here. So my parents split up when I was about 5 years old. Like, my dad was a gambler. And my mom was like, I got young kids. I can't be having you selling the furniture and stuff like that. So she eventually left. We moved to a small town in British Columbia from Alberta. Got together with a guy. I can only describe him as like Conan. Like, he was just a grunk. Like, he was a hardworking guy, you know, worked up in the bush, had a logging camp, a cement company, or a cement plant, logging company. And he used to do a lot of like, he had a lot of heavy equipment he'd rent out for Forestry Canada when they do the firefighting and that. So we were pretty well off, but he used to work 16-hour days in the bush. An absolutely horrid man. And when you see those, everybody telling you about how like alpha males are good people, it's like, no, they're not. Like, he was a certifiable ass. 100% cannot be mistaken. But he was on his third wife. And he kept her, my mom, around for like 20 years, raised 2 kids and 3 stepkids. So like the boy had game. And even after they divorced, he ended up with a new wife who's like my age, which was crazy. And he had a brand new kid. So he was just every 20 years, it looked like he'd start a new family with a younger wife. So I was like, but the big part of the reason I'm bringing him up is because we used to have a lot of dealings with the Hells Angels, which in Canada were getting big at the time. And I didn't know a lot of this as a kid, but like growing up surrounded by criminals. So I like to think I have some experience with this. Plus my time in the Royal Canadian Navy, I had to deal a lot with the criminal justice system, because once you have subordinates, some of them are going to get into trouble. And usually it's simple. Like, a buddy of mine mooned the cops because they liked the wrong football team when we were in San Diego at the Canadian bar there. So the cops took him down, and you know, me and my one best buddy that I talk about in Fuck Files a lot, we're like, well, we can't help him, so at least we get back to ship. We'll let them know he's arrested. And so like, you generally, like, your bosses have to go pick him up out of the drunk tank, and there's no drunk tank in San Diego. They just have general pop. So he got the yellow jumpsuit treatment. So you have to go down there, pick your guys up, do paperwork. That's an easy sort of dealing with criminality thing. My time teaching at Fleet School, I remember one of my students, there was a weird phase where like one guy had a story. I was having like one drink, and then all of a sudden I blacked out and, you know, passed out in an alleyway and stuff. And people were getting in trouble, the first 2. But then there was like a rash of sailors that somebody was like spiking their drinks with roofies. I don't know what it was. I don't know why it was happening. It's like they weren't being graped. They weren't being robbed. They weren't being assaulted. It was like literally just some anti-military guy doing it. So after the first few guys got charged and screwed over by it, they started being like, okay, guys, stay safe. Keep basically telling them to act like how they tell women to act, so you don't get roofied and graped in your apartment later. But, you know, typical guys were like, sounds good, man. Way to stay safe, as opposed to, well, men shouldn't do it. Yeah. We're not stupid. One of my students ended up, I guess he had an adverse reaction to it, became violent, and tried stabbing a cabbie with a box cutter. So he ended up going to jail for that. Another one of my students, Frenchie, which is actually a story I put into praxeology when it came to about like not like your virtue was a lie, where he ended up going to a party with a bunch of sailors and they were doing drugs. This is before weed was legal in Canada. And one of them got caught, ratted all the rest of them out. It was a nice little story about how doing the right thing actually isn't the right thing at all, even though you think it is and everybody tells you it is. But you're not actually doing the best thing for you. You're doing the best thing for them. And in the process, you're lighting yourself on fire to keep other people warm. And then obviously there was my situation where they tried running me up the flagpole. But luckily, I had enough skill and talent and experience to know how to handle, as Terrence Popp calls it, administrative violence. And so, yeah, now we're here today where I see a bunch of people creating a whole bunch of unforced errors when it comes to the law. And I'm like, this seems like the kind of thing that the safe suburban kid who thinks this is the coolest thing ever needs a guide on. If you don't know, in the news, there's a certain there's two actually alpha males just got arrested. The first was the Guzman guy, the El Chapo Jr. I guess a bunch of Americans or a bunch of Canadians were at the resort, and then all of a sudden Saving Private Ryan LARPers came on board, and I saw a TikTok, and my girl's like, check this out. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny. Some guy's doing a viral video. And she's like, no. I'm like, what is that? Oh, they're storming the beaches, man. They're going after Guzman. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So he got arrested, and then obviously Andrew Tate bragged about how he bribes cops, how he has multiple passports, how he treats women like property, and all this stuff. He got arrested. And actually, you know what? We'll get into the commentary part of that afterwards. So I got 5 different themes we're going to talk about here. The first one is going to be military theater, which is going to explain a lot of the virtue is a lie thing. STFU, your greatest skill set and most wonderful superpower, which has practical applications throughout your life. Incompetent, not stupid. That's mostly dealing with people who have a chance to screw you over. Your ego and the laws of power, which I always hate bringing up the dark triad stuff because it gives a lot of guys the stupid superhero, I'm the Joker, Tyler Durden fantasy, but it is really something here. Like, there is value in it. You should learn it. And then ended off with some practical applications. Like, dude, I'm not a criminal. Like, why do I need to worry about this stuff? Well, we'll get to that at the end. In the meantime, let's do a little bit of Bantz. I already got you, Nick. Who do we got here? Glenn Lawrence, $4.99 super chat. Appreciate, man. That 1 penny would have gotten a heartfelt. Let me know if you want a voiceover actor to record your book. Thank you. Thank you, but no thank you. For me, the big thing on the book is I think the author needs to read it in his own voice. So just like Fuck Files, I'm going to be reading this one in my own voice. But I will keep you in mind if I change my mind and decide to get somebody else to read it for me. So let me see. We got Dougie. Good morning, maggots. Canadian bar. Isn't that just a gay bar with extra letters? Oh, no, sir, John. Honestly, it was an okay Canadian bar, but it was missing a lot. Like, I just remember we were walking down. I can't remember what the strip is called. It's not Santa Monica, but that's how I remember it. And we were just walking by bar to bar to bar. And this one had a surfboard with I Am Canadian, the Molson Canadian logo on the top. We're like, oh, we got to check this out. And they kind of got the Canadian spirit right, but they missed it. Like, if they really wanted to encapsulate a Canadian party, the bar should have been designed to look like a kitchen. Because every house party you're ever at, it's always like, there's like a living room to hang out in. There's the patio outside, which you go if you're going to have a smoke. If you're going to have some smokes, bud. But everybody generally just hangs out in the kitchen drinking. Even in my place back in when I was on Vancouver Island, it was like a 1,300 square foot, 2-bedroom. It was basically set up like a bachelor pad. And so there was like a huge space for partying and that. And then everybody was hanging in my tiny little galley kitchen getting drunk. And it's just a Canadian thing. I don't know what it is. Something about a sink brings up the magic of alcohol, you know? Okay, Jackie did post a Q&A. What's wrong with being in prison? I mean, that's a silly question, but I get a feeling you're trying to be cheeky with that one. Yeah, what's wrong with being in prison? Well, from a purely red-pilled perspective, you can't get no poon in prison. Like, as much as you want to talk about sexual strategies and, oh, yeah, girls are hybistophiliacs and they love criminals. Like, that's true. But the 5 years you're in the slammer, you're basically an incel. Or maybe you're not. But either way, still not really a red pill thing. Yeah, hole's a hole. If you say so. A shank is a shank. A shiv is a shiv. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Speak at the devil's name. Morning dudes. Yeah, 2 alphas, 1 cup. The chick I used to see at the bar sometimes stopped coming around. I asked her about it. Turns out she got roofied there, and it was so bad she tried to fight the paramedics. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like I guess everybody is affected by medication differently, and for roofies, it's some people just get that psychotic breakdown to it. The problem was like nobody knew what it was at the time, so by the time we even suspected that, it was far too late in the process. The sexual market comes from you. Okay, so military theater. Actually, you know what? Heck with it. So we're already here having fun. Let's get this out of the way now. We'll get it out of the way and we'll move on.
Not Ryan Stone. I think he's the most important guy in the world. Ryan Stone. Give a fuck about Ryan Stone. Me and him have gone back and forth. Blah blah. Yeah. Ryan Stone does not pass the 6-foot test. He's not even a man. So I don't give a fuck with Ryan Stone.
Feel better? Do you feel better? I feel better. All right. The elephant in the room is gone. Yes. Tate once trash talked me because I made fun of him. Because I didn't think anybody, honestly, do you guys know the history of this story? Like I was talking with Chrissy on this one. She said you look like a seal, which made me laugh. I always just think of him as a buffer version of Neil Strauss, but whatever. I'm not here to slam the guy because like as a person, I don't really have a strong opinion about him. Like we've talked a few times and I think we were even on a live stream once and it's like, I don't know, mid. No hate, no love. Just, yeah, it's a normal guy you talk to. The brand, though, is just absolute dog shit and embarrasses everybody who tries to do real work in the red pill. So I've decided to I've decided to shitpost on that hill, sir. Oh, Rich took down the stream? Well, it's a good thing I downloaded it then. We'll see. I got to do up some new commercials for the new book and that, so... But it was probably smart of him. I don't know. Does he still have a second one up? That'll be good. Oh, yeah. So the history on that one was there's this guy on Twitter, Colty And Colty he was like one of those bro millionaire types, right? And from the people that know him, he's not joking. Like he really is. He really does make good money. Like all the stuff that everybody brags about on Twitter, he actually does do that. I don't want to talk out of turn. Lives down in Colorado. And at one point, the rumor was he had like a bit of a nose candy vendor and then started talking some smack against Tate. And then Tate pulled his whole like alpha war room thing. And the rumor is because he had a bunch of chapters of dudes who were joining Hustlers University and they would go do workouts in the park and stuff like that. They had a group in Toronto that was doing it too. I actually saw them once where they were working out there's this park in, not Liberty Village, but it's somewhere close to there anyway. And they're doing like kickboxing training. And I was like, oh, that looks really familiar. And then they started posting some photos. I'm like, oh, dude, that was them? Fair enough. Just a bunch of dudes, right? Whatever. And so he told them, hey, go to this guy's house and start harassing his family and stuff. And I'm going, first off, if you're paying however many $1,000s a year for a course on how to become an alpha male that makes a lot of money, last thing I need is them putting me on, hey, do me a favor, stalk these people in an open carry state. I'm like, nah, man, I don't feel like getting shot because I want to make you look good. But apparently they did. I mean, but at the time I was like, there's no way anybody is stupid enough to brag about committing a felony like this. There's no way. And so I'm like, this is total BS. And that was what happened. He was on there talking with Rich Cooper about, how to be rich and famous and all that stuff. And one of you guys sent him a $5 super chat because the joke was the $5 super chats was what got Jack Murphy in trouble. So anytime somebody wants to end a career, you send a $5 super chat and bring it up the obvious. And then he went into this big rant, and supposedly there's like that 40-minute conversation, like just him hating on me was about 25 minutes of it. So I didn't really watch the whole thing. It took me a year until finally I'm like, somebody just send me a timestamp. I'm not watching this. So yeah, sucks how he took it down though. Anyways, where are we going with this one? Oh, military theater. So let me set the timestamp properly. And I'll explain to you guys a little something about why things work the way they do. So in the military, you have your own criminal justice system. You have administrative corrections and disciplinary. Administrative is more like, it's like the equivalent of like civil law and criminal law, but it's for the military. National Defense Act, this whole other set of laws, but at the same time, you're also applicable to all civilian laws. But then the military is like, yeah, no, we get first dibs. Once we're done, then they send you off to the criminal system. And the problem is sailors aren't investigators. MPs aren't investigators. Like I remember hearing during my little event, there was military police in Quebec that were handling the investigation. Handled it so badly, by the way, that the premier of the province decided that they stripped all investigative powers for the MPs across the province. They were like, you guys were so bad at this, you're fired. So the MPs had to like give things to the RCMP if they wanted to investigate in the future. That's how bad they were at it. And it's no better anywhere else. It's just most places don't quite go so incompetently, but Quebec. Sean Bipley, sir, thank you, $5 super chat. Now, what this means is that in the military, the best and most certain way that somebody gets convicted of a National Defense Act violation or, an administrative one is to get a confession. And this is what introduces the concept of military theater. And military theater is manipulation at its finest. Like it was down to a science. It was almost like pickup artistry where you're given canned lines. And I'm a bit hazy. It's been a while, but the way it worked was if somebody got caught for something, the suspected using drugs, AWOL, whatever, the first thing you do is you have to put the fear of God into them, because it's like their fear of what could happen far outweighs what actually happens, like with powers of punishment. Summary trial, you can only do so much. Sean Bipley, sir, $95 super chat rounds it off for an even 100. Appreciate that, sir. I always wish you would say something so I can give a shout out, but all I can do is acknowledge and say thank you. But I would assume in your heart that's like that's the top G moment right there. Anyways, so the first thing you do is put the fear of God into them, and a lot of it is the waiting. You don't actually say or do anything. What we would do at Fleet School is you tell them and there was like a bullpen of the instructors, and then there was all the classrooms, and there's the hallway outside, and you say, be outside the bullpen, standing at attention, 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, something like that. Usually it's like pretty early, so it would have been like 7:50. Be there at 7:0750 hours. And then they stand there and they're at attention. You don't see them right away. You wait in your office, you check your emails, you chat with the guys, you do things. You want it to sound very casual in there. And you just let them sit there. And then at some point you walk out, look over, wait here. Go to the bathroom, go do whatever, grab some water out of the water fountain, come back, then invite them down to the office. Have them sit down, and you give and that's the first part. That's like the fear of God, because all that time they're sitting there, they're thinking, what the hell is going on? He told me to be here. Why is he making me wait? It must be because they're worried about screwing me over or something like that, or he's putting the charges together. And then you've done your bad cop, fear of God. You bring him in. It's like, look, like, I know what happened here. Like, dude, it's not the first time it's happened. You always bring up an anecdote, like, oh yeah, like when I was an ordinary seaman like you, I did this thing. And it's like, oh, okay, so it's good. So it's like, look, here's how this is going to work. You're going to get interviewed by whoever. Just tell them everything, and we'll take this to summary trials. Summary trials aren't bad. You can do this, you can do this. And then when you get back to work, we'll put it all behind us and we can be done with it. So it's almost like the perspective of like, look, you messed up. We know you messed up. Just admit everything. You do your punishment. And then when you're back, you're still part of the family. And I swear to God, it's like every guy cries. Every guy, everybody, without exception, cries. Because there's some visceral, emotional, like resonant male thing that it just taps into. And it's so common that they actually give you a briefing on how to handle men crying. Have tissues by your thing, push the box towards them, don't hand them a tissue, don't say everything's going to be all right, don't try to soften the blow or sympathize with them. You just sit there quietly, let them gain their composure, don't let them leave the room. And then when they're ready to talk again, you just carry on as per normal. That's it. Ultra, no, me, but I was a bit of a different case. I was so angry at the time because I never even got an interview until 6 months after, and they already put me into like work camps and shit like that. So for me, it was like a fact-finding mission. Why the hell am I here? What is happening? And when everybody let me know, I was so irritated. I actually wiretapped my own investigation, and I remember I was very proud of my moment. But that's what I'm talking about here, right? With a little bit of preparation, a little bit of knowledge, you don't have to fall into the same ruts and problems that everybody else is. Well, it was an ad hoc one. It was Quebec. But yeah, digging ditches, gravel, stuff like that. But here, I'm not here to go like the woe is me crap. So don't worry about it. This story isn't about me. Its story is about you. I'm not here. I'm not a branding flex right now. Right now, I'm actually giving you guys actionable information. And where it's applicable, I'll bring up my stuff. But I'm not just going to do it to brag about stuff. Well, you just put record on your phone, dude. I told you guys, incompetence, man. But that's a different section. Anyways, so they get through all of this stuff. You go through the charges, and then they have like a big theatrical production, which is like, oh, I forgot to set up the dog. I was going to have a picture-in-picture camera with the dogs in the corner, but I forgot to set it up, and he's sleeping by my feet. And either a summary trial or a court-martial. Like, do you remember A Few Good Men? It's kind of set up like that, but sometimes it's ad hoc on a ship or at a unit, and sometimes it's in like a proper JAG facility. You always go there in your N1s, you do proper drill. It's almost like a parade, and then the pomp and circumstance and the ritual of it gives the whole thing an extra added weight to it. And all of this stuff is specifically designed to emotionally manipulate a guy into going with the system. I remember when I was, and this is the military theater. They call it security theater sometimes, all this stuff. And the courts are no different. So the first thing you got to realize is that what you're doing is performative. Like, it's not performative. Well, it's for two reasons. General deterrent and specific deterrence, they call them in court parlance. Ask a lawyer in here, they'll explain it in more detail. But the gist of it is, a general deterrent means you're not doing it to make sure you don't do this again. You're letting everybody else around you know the system is good, the system works well, don't fuck up the system, right? The second part is specific deterrent. The idea is they put the fear of God into you so you don't commit any more crimes. And between the two of those things, the system, I mean, it works pretty well. And as long as you got a trustworthy system that for the most part is good and only uses this stuff against you if you've messed up, then most people would say it's a pretty good system. But it's not that way anymore. There's a lot of people that are having it weaponized against them. Kyle Rittenhouse, great example. Kyle broke no laws, but because of political pressure, he had to go through 2 years of hell. Now, my hell was only 14 months, so I can only imagine. So I remember when I saw him at the stand breaking down into tears, I'm like, oh boy, I just had like, I go exactly what's happening right there. Exactly what's happening. And everybody likes to think of themselves as a tough guy, but if you're not prepared, man, like, the system has got way more experience than you ever will. So you got to remember with this stuff, the deterrents are theater. And one of the best parts about developing and having frame, get out of here, buddy. The best parts about having frame is that simple question. And I get guys to tell themselves every time, like, every time something happens, every time somebody wants something from you, every time anything occurs in your life where you need to make a decision, the first question you need to ask yourself is, what's in it for me? Somebody wants to manipulate you. Well, what's in it for me? Girl wants you to do more dishes so she'll be more comfortable, maybe have sex more. What's in it for me? Your boss wants you to stay in late. What's in it for me? If you can answer that question, you're far further along than most people, because most people just do things because they're afraid of conflict. They do things because it's easier than thinking for yourself. They do things because they're worried about some fictional, emotional punishment that doesn't exist or they don't know exists and they just assume is there. What's in it for me? And it's such a powerful statement when you think that way. Because then you realize life isn't about right and wrong. Life is about actions and consequences. So what's in it for me? If the answer is nothing, then don't do anything. If there's a consequence to that, you look at the consequence. Is the consequence that bad? Is it something you can live with? If it's something you can live with, then fuck it. Now, if it's something you can't live with and you're like, no, I can't live with that, then what's in it for me? Well, I avoid this consequence. But it's defined. It's finite. It's something you can weather. And this matters in divorce. This matters in law. This matters in the military. It matters everywhere. you'll find that most guys bitching about like divorce rape and all that stuff, they don't actually fear the legal process of divorce. They fear the what if emotional, hyperbolic, like neurotic sense of what could happen. That's the fear of abandonment from mommy personified in a divorce case. And then obviously this is the problem too. So the smarter you are, the better you're able to justify that fear and wrap it around a veneer of post hoc rationalization. And that's where you're getting all of these wonderful thousands of words of like MGTOW fan fiction that sound eloquent. They make perfect sense. They're logically consistent, but they're all based on a falsy premise that mommy's going to abandon me. And for a lot of guys, once you realize, okay, what actually happens, and you look it up, okay, you have to pay a certain amount for child support or alimony or whatever based on these criteria. And somebody's like, dude, that's like, I can't even afford to live and do that. Okay, fine. So what can you do to mitigate that? And it turns out just like being more present with your kids. Don't do the overtime. Don't take that promotion at work because the extra money will just end up going straight to the wife and screw you over. But you see what I mean? Once you stop looking at the theater of it and start looking as what's in it for you, you start to make better decisions that give you better outcomes. And this is like what's called like mitigating your risk. And then you realize what's the worst case scenario, whether it's court, whether it's whatever. I mean, in the military, a summary trial would, at most, they can give you, I think, 30 days in birds, which is, it's not prison. It's a lesser form of prison. It's like you're confined to barracks, basically, and you have some drill that you have to practice and a bunch of punishment stuff, but it's not the worst. It sucks. It's not the worst. And so you're like, okay, 30 days of that. Maybe you're confined to ship. You don't get to go out in foreign ports. Like, I can live with that. And so then you realize, like, during this thing, you don't have to have this giant fear about a summary trial because you know the consequences. They're actually defined. It's one of the few places where you can go look it up. What can possibly happen? And like maximum is these things. If you want anything more than that, you need to go to a summary trial. And that, again, that's game theory in action. Because the summary trial is, they have, like, the powers of evidence and proof are much lower. For the most part, it's like, if you're in a summary trial, you are guilty. You will be found guilty. There's no doubt about it. Unless somebody does something really stupid. But that also means they can't just throw the book at you. You have very limited powers of punishment. And that's the trade-off you make. So a lot of guys are like, well, that's better than a court-martial. Now, a court-martial, laws of evidence, it's like court. Laws of evidence are very strict. You know, innocent until proven guilty. You guys know all that shtick. But 2 years of club ed. That's the military prison. 2 years of club ed. And I'm telling you right now, they used to have guys come in who had done time at club ed, and they come and talk to you. It fundamentally changes who you are permanently. Permanently. Something about having to earn the right to speak with hard labor. It just messes with the guy. And the guy was saying, like, I have never been able to sleep in past 4:30 again. My kit and my bed, I've been a civilian for 15 years, and it is still meticulously, like, they even had to clean and polish their mop bucket after mopping the floors. Like, that level of detail. So you don't want to go there. But that's the point. Do you believe in your fundamental innocence that you're willing to risk that? And most people aren't. Most people like, just give me the summary trial, we'll get it out of the way. And there's career implications to it too. But I'm like, it's at this point, I don't want to give you guys a military lecture on civil and criminal law, but you get the point, right? If you're able to look at these things with that much of a deliberate action, you're able to make better choices. Hey, morning, Marty. John Watt, sir, $4.99 super chat. Thank you very much. For every like we give Coach, the police will take one car from Tate. Oh yeah, it's official. I officially own more cars than Andrew Tate. So the theater, you got to remember, man, it's all theater. And it all serves a purpose, and it all taps into some visceral, emotional stuff that we have, and we can't stop it. As much as anybody here may be thinking, you might be a tough guy. Like, oh, whatever, I can do this, I can do that. If you're not ready, man, you will get fucked. It's just like trying to sleep with girls. Like, where a lot of guys think, well, I'm smarter than women, I can handle this. It's like, yes, you may be smarter, but a girl has been having every guy she's ever known trying to sleep with her since she was 13. She will whoop your intelligent ass with more experience than you can possibly know. So if you're not prepared, if you don't have experience, she will run roughshod over you. She'd be like that that chick on TikTok who's like, yeah, I like crushing men under me. It makes me feel like a woman. It makes me laugh when I damage people. And you're like, there you go. Yeah, interrogation is scary, and that's the point. And here's the biological reason why this stuff, and just from a very simple standpoint. And his marketing does the same thing. When you bypass somebody's frontal lobe and you start tapping into their limbic brain, they can't think. They just run off of instinct. And instincts are predictable. Everybody's instincts are the same. And that's why they do it. That's why marketers tap into, like, you want to be an alpha male? That taps into an insecurity that you're not good enough. Oh, girls, you want some anti-aging cream? That's tapping into your insecurity that you're ugly and nobody will want you and you'll die alone. The military is in that fear of death. You're going to be fucked. Your life is over. It's basically like the same as threatening somebody's life. And so all of these things tap into that limbic fight or flight response. So you don't just think things through. And again, the same, I've talked about killology before. I know you guys hate hearing about it again, but I'll repeat it here. The best defense against things that tap into your emotional process like this is preparation and learning to bypass that emotional thing with a surrogate thought process. That's why you shoot at silhouettes that look like people. When you get into the battlefield, you're not killing people. You're just instinctually shooting at silhouettes. It's the same concept here. So the more you know. Is torture a legal craft or job in Canada? Maybe under a different title? Well, funny you mentioned that. In the 90s, we used to have a paratrooper division, which had purple berets. They were kind of like our version of the Rangers. So they got disbanded because during Rwanda, which if you don't know, it was a UN operation to stop the massacres and genocide in Rwanda. Romeo Dallaire, I think, was the guy, the CO in the charge of that. So the airborne went down there, and I guess some kid threw a grenade at military guys or something. Anyways, some kind of revenge thing. But some of the guys in the platoon ended up torturing some kids, some Rwandan kids. And so that was such a stain on the Canadian military that they disbanded the unit. And that's why if you ever saw, like, and you were still allowed to wear your purple beret, because they were spread out everywhere else after they disbanded. So if you ever saw a guy wearing a purple beret, it was kind of one of those, like the aging dinosaur, last of a dying breed. After your life is over. Yeah, welcome to that, sir. No, there's no lamps over your face in interrogation. All that stuff is theatrics for TV. That's for people who don't know what they're doing, and that's how it should work. Anyways, so I guess there was a new one too, where I didn't even catch a lot of the story yet, but it was something to do with, I want to say Afghanistan, where a couple military guys were torturing somebody there too. There was one before where they weren't torturing people, but they were handing them off to Afghani police when they knew they were getting tortured, which is still against Canadian law. So we have a bit of a history of torture. So yeah, we're not really as kind and nice as whatever. Yeah, so that's military theater. How are we doing for time? Actually, we're pretty good for time. Let's so I don't have an advertisement for praxeology yet, so we're just gonna have to pretend that's what this is.
Single moms. A horrible position that's not my problem.
I don't know what I'm gonna do for a theme on the new one either. My girl was like, why don't you have it like where you're baking something in the oven again? I'm like, I already did that shtick. I should do another one. Well, why don't you do one where you're making fun of Tate? I'm like, well, Tate's going to come and go. I want this to be kind of like a timeless thing. So if you got ideas, let me know in the chat. What? War sucks? Green light. You never... the Canadian paras are still a thing. I've jumped with some of them. They came down to Fort Bragg. Well, they're a thing, but the official... Like not the garrison. What do they call it? I suck at the army stuff. They're disbanded, but the members are still there. Like, they didn't get rid of them. Oh, it was JTF2, by the way. That was the ones they were accused of torturing some people in, I think it was Afghanistan or Ukraine. I think I found your theme song. Oh, dear, I hope not. Would be hilarious if the camera pans over to Fuck Files, but it's just poorly photoshopped with praxeology. Nothing else changed. Well, this one I'm trying to take a little seriously, so I don't think I'm going to... I mean, I might, but I don't want to shitpost it. Because I was kind of hoping this reaches a larger audience. Like, some of the decisions I made, like not using jargon in that, means there's somebody who doesn't even like the red pill, might actually get some value from it. Mark an idea, Tate diss track. Yeah. Honestly, I'm kind of over it, but I did promise Zertis a Tate rant, so I'll come up with a little bit more outrage for a bit, but I'm kind of over it already. I don't want to be like the Bart, like, say the line, Bart. Hey! STFU. And you. If you guys don't know, STFU is an acronym. Stands for shutting the F up. What's the purpose of this, and why is it a red pill thing? And why is just being quiet such a superpower? Well, STFU is your way of handling situations you don't know. Like, nobody knows everything, and you maybe don't understand, like, am I being manipulated here? Is something going against me? Is my wife, fitness testing me, or is she comfort testing me? Is somebody cheating on me? Are they trying to get me to admit to something that's not in my best interest? If you don't know, you'll never lose by just shutting up. They can threaten you. They can say, oh, well, just by quiet, you're guilty. It's like, no. You may not win, whatever the interaction is, by shutting up, but you'll never lose. So it's kind of like a way of, it's like a parry. Always shut up. If you are, for criminals, example here, if you're, what's the thing? If you're being interrogated, is there anything you want to tell me? Like, no. Like, that was my actual line, was like, I'm not here to do your effing job. I was so pissed too. I was like, you let me in hell for 6 months and you don't even know why I'm here? I'm not here to do your effing job for you. Same thing. Where were you, honey? Your wife's accusing you of something when really she was just, you're tired of like being turned down for sex for 6 months. I'm going to go to the gym and then go to the bar and talk to some people and hang out. Where were you? It's none of your business. How dare you? Just shut up. Just shut up, man. Cops, it'll go much easier for you if you just talk to us now. I don't know if you guys know this, but cops lie. Cops are legally allowed to lie, which is almost counterintuitive. Like, I get it, because criminals have no code of conduct, so like, well, we shouldn't have a code of conduct either. But it kind of does have a side effect of degrading trust in the police, which, let's face it, it's not totally unwarranted to have a distrust of police right now. Not gonna lie to you. I don't know how many riots you've been to, but there's a great guy from the Manosphere who went down in January 6th and he got effed. Didn't do anything wrong. Just stormed the Capitol and live streamed it, but that's what you get for trusting the law. Well, let's throw him in jail and separate him from his brand new family. Now, look, I know some of you in the audience might be cops, and I'm not saying this as like a slight against you personally, but come on. You know what I'm talking about. You guys want your job done. You believe in your cause. I have some friends that are cops. They joined after the military and somewhere in there before. It's the same thing, and I've just made the decisions like, yeah, let's just not talk about cop stuff together because that's going to ruin our relationship now. Because they already know. Like, cops have a hard time holding friends and they can't help it either. A lot of them, when you're just talking to your friends, whatever, you banter about stuff. Maybe you're a little hyperbolic. Maybe you admit to, yeah, I get girls tattooed names on them, or tattoo my name on girls. It's like a joke. But cops always have in the back of their mind, like, is he talking about breaking a law? And is this something I need to do? And you can tell, you can see it in their eyes when they kind of switch over to that I'm doing my job look. And so for a lot of people, they're just like, I just don't feel comfortable being friends with you. And they slowly kind of distance themselves. So that's why it's weird. Cops have like this self-fulfilling prophecy where they become more insular the longer they've been a cop, and they become less trusting of the public, and the public's less trusting of them. I wish I had an answer for how to solve this. I don't. I just know the dynamic. Yeah, John Nash's stuff. Yeah, Prisoner's Dilemma. I mean, there's that. That's that kind of outside of the scope here, but you'll never, like, shut up. And I can't believe I'm going to give you a 20-minute speech on shutting up. Why are you talking so much about shut up? Because it's that important. And I'm gonna leave the how to stay out of jail thing aside here, but it's just so much of it. Shut up. If your wife thinks you're cheating on her, if you're not, shut up. Why? Well, if you are cheating on her, why would you fess up? You obviously don't give a shit. So, but if you're not, most of you guys are good people and you're not cheating on her. And so if she accuses you of cheating on her and you say, no, babe, I'd never cheat on you. I'm not cheating on you. The girl's not going to think, oh, okay, he's not. They're going to think, why is he hiding it more from me? I gotta investigate further. And you essentially create this paranoid, neurotic rabbit hole where guys make their girl into a neurotic mess thinking he's definitely cheating and hiding it. It's the same as when I tell you about guys, how they have this stupid, and I'm not going to name names, but some very popular, bigger than me brand in the manosphere talks about, yeah, put a GPS tracker in your girl's car so you can follow her movements and you make sure she's not cheating on you. And I'm like, dude, here's what's going to happen. You're going to track that GPS thing. And then you're going to see, okay, she went to the grocery store, but she was there for 7 minutes. That's 5 minutes to sneak in. If you go to the grocery store across the street to Buddy's house, you can sleep with him. Or maybe she got into his car when she was doing her grocery shopping and then came back to the cart because she knows I'm tracking her. And it just becomes paranoid and you're moving the goalpost. It turns out there's like an emotional thing you want to see and there's an emotional thing you want to hide from. And all of this stuff just ends up being a post hoc justification for whatever paranoid delusion you want to have. And it's just not worth. Like, I'll tell you right now, if she thinks you're cheating on her and you are, you're going to get caught. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. And I don't like using the word caught, but in this case, I would consider it like the concept of blue pill cheating, which is outside the scope of this, so I'll get into it. Just know, nobody's smart. If your girl's cheating on you, you may not find out the first time or the second time, but you will find out. Nobody's that smart for that long. You just got to be patient. And the only thing that matters is not, dude, you let her cheat on you twice? It's like, I didn't know. But when you do know, what do you do? In this case, the first thing you do is shut the fuck up. Shut up. Wando, €2 super chat. Thank you. How would Donnie track her and hold her accountable? Yeah, you shut up. That's another reason you shut up. If you get somebody who's doing something, they're breaking the law or they're cheating on you in that, what are you going to do? By opening your mouth, you're giving them information. And by giving them information, you're allowing them to make better decisions. So if your girl's cheating on you and you hold her accountable and you confront her about it, what are you doing? She's just going to deny. If she's half-assed smart, she'll deny it. And then if she denies it, she comes back and then she realizes, okay, I got to be smarter about this. He told me he had a GPS tracker in my car. He says he knows I'm talking to this person. So I hide my tracks better. I go hang out at my friend's house and she calls them and tells them I'm there and I'm in the toilet because I'm sick or whatever. All you're doing by opening your mouth is giving somebody more information to use to manipulate you. Same thing with cops. That's why cops don't tell you everything either on the investigation. They tell you as little as they have to. Because the more you talk, the more information you give them, and then the better decisions they can make. And if they tell you too much, you start making up excuses and you start hiding your crimes better. It makes their job tougher. So yeah, shut up. Just shut up. But everybody will think I'm cool. Maybe. But you know what else is cool? Not getting piped in the cornhole in prison. Also cool. Trust me. Trust me. How would you know? Because I've never, my exit only, man. I'm exit only and I'm perfectly happy. And I mean, why do I have to justify it? Nobody wants it in the cornhole. Or maybe you do, in which case, open your mouth, run it, do what you need to do. The reversal of the law of power, JD, £5 super chat. A family member joined the police. Me and several cousins haven't spoken to them since. It's in the culture. We assume people who join the police are off. So here, with shut the F up, here's another good example of it. I had 3 friends that I sailed with who tried to join the RCMP. Turns out military to RCMP is a pipeline. And one wanted to join to be one of them dog cops, a canine unit. And then the other 2 joined to be general officers. The dog guy got in. He was actually Mikey, the guy I used to do pickup with back in the day, which is funny because I kind of know his history. So I'm like, I know he was smart and shut the F up here. But the other 2 friends weren't that smart. Here's how I know. They actually put you in a polygraph at one point. And there's a whole bunch of you basically have to have like your shit can't stink or they just won't take you. At the time, weed was decriminalized, but it wasn't illegal. And so the girl, they asked her, have you ever smoked weed in the last 5 years? And she goes, yeah, I did once at like 2 years ago. Bam. Canceled right there. I mean, they didn't turn her into the military, which is good that there's no cross-contamination with these admissions. But like you can't test for like weed. I think you can, if you have a lot of body fat, it sometimes stays in your system for about a month. So you can test for that. P tests or whatever they do. I don't remember. I just remember you just send them off to a place and they do the tests. But after 2 years, like, is anybody going to know? And you think, well, I'm at a polygraph. And this is back to the military theater. It's a polygraph test. They're testing you if you're honest. So you better be honest. They'll know. It's like, not necessarily. Polygraphs, they don't actually test you for honesty. They test you for changes in like your heartbeat, your perspiration, stuff like that, right? But the test itself isn't what gets you. It's the interviewer. They have a skill set. It's almost like running the cube. It's like running pickup on somebody. You're looking for them, and you'll see ticks, verbal ticks in theirs. It's like basically reading body language, and the machine is just there to distract you. Yeah, nobody tells you about those, do they? Polygraphs don't work. So she says, like, no. And it maybe looks suspicious, maybe, but can't prove it. So she could have been a cop today, but she was too honest because she fell for the theater. And then the other guy, they got him on this, that when he was in high school, he had a DVD burner and used to burn movies and like sell them to his friends for $5 a pop. So imagine that, some like copying DVDs off the Pirate Bay, and now he can't be a cop. And I was like, that's ridiculous. But that's the level of, and here's the thing, I think I get what they're trying to do. They want to select for the best of the best moral paragons of Canadian society and then make them cops. But it's not what happens, because nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Everybody has done something that they're not proud of or committed a crime knowingly or unknowingly at some point in their life. So what they're actually doing is they're selecting for people who are best able to hide and pathologically lie about these things. And that's why the RCMP has like a horrible history of all kinds of shady stuff. Like, dude, if you look into it, it's, yeah. I mean, yes, there's good cops, I get it, but the bad ones, Jesus, Jesus. Like casual racism. They used to take guys, like in Winnipeg, they used to take natives that were drunk and drive them outside of town and beat the crap out of them, leave them on the outskirts of the city at like -40, like stuff like that. Casual brutality. So why would you want to be honest with these kind of people, right? You got to remember that. Of course, why would you want to join? But I mean, it's good pensions, I guess. So yeah, shut up. Shut up. Now, Mikey, I know for a fact they asked him similar questions to this, and he's like, nope, nothing. And they didn't prove nothing. He didn't say nothing. Now he's a cop. He's having fun. Living his best life with his Dodge 3500. But good on him, though. I'm like, good. He learned his lesson. And again, your virtue's a lie. So that's when you realize, and this is where I love, like, I always tell people that red pill, people join it because they want to get laid, and then they leave with understanding of the human condition. You remember when girls, like, they just want a guy who gets it, subtext, that sort of thing? It's the same principle. It just applies to everybody. A girl, she knows you want to sleep with her, but plausible deniability. You give her an excuse so she could say, oh, no, nothing happened. We were just going for a coffee, or we were just feeding his fish. And then, you know, one thing led to another, but we cuddled a bit, but nothing, no sexual thing happened. Trust me, baby, it's your baby. It's just that. So that's another skill. And here's, actually, you know what? We might move this one later. I was going to leverage this into the incompetence point, but I think ego and the laws of power is going to be better. Yeah. They are self-selecting for evil geniuses in the pop. Yeah, Jimmy. Basically, thank you for the $2 super chat, by the way. All right, speaking of stupid criminals, where do I got his thing? Is this him?
One of the guys who ran the Red Pill channel sent me a message. I actually appreciate that you took it from an idea-based perspective instead of ever resorting to personal attack. Like, if this movement is actually going to be dangerous, do we need to understand it so that we can take it down? I knew going into it that this might be a hot mess. I'm not going to have those guys back on my channel again. Absolutely not.
All right, it's the wrong one, but whatever. She called me a cultist, so we'll go with it. Actually, you know what? We're going to run out before we do, so I'll try one more. I really should name these properly. Maybe it's this one?
I love the way girls smell. I love how they always make sure, by and large, they shower, and they just have an amazing smell to them in general.
Homa, did you shine your head in the Shine-O-Ballo? No, sir. Yeah, it makes me laugh. I kind of feel bad picking on the guy now. Like, he's had a rough go, but it's all really unforced errors. So the next part is I'm talking about your ego and the laws of power. And I hate this conversation, but it's kind of important here. Set the timestamp properly. I haven't heard any feedback from you guys, but I assume the timestamps are nice if you want to go to a specific thing, which is nice. I tried finding the Stedman vid on your channel, but I guess it's hidden. I might not have it on the channel. I might have just made the video and just use it in these cases here. Like I might not have filmed like a proper promo. If so, I got to upload it one of these days so I don't lose it. Because I'm like, I've already lost a hard drive. I lost a bunch of stuff, so backed up a bunch, but not all of it. Anyways, ego and the laws of power. That's how they get you. That's one of actually the key manipulative techniques that exist, is appealing to your ego. That's where girls say, I need a big, strong man to do this for me. You're like, well, I'm a big, strong man. I'm going to do that. You know, they tell you what you want to hear. Military one. It's like, yeah, we know you're a good kid. You just did something bad and you'll suffer your thing. And they're appealing to your sense of inner nobility. And you're like, yes, I'm a real man. I'm a good sailor. Let's do this. And you walk into that courtroom held high and you just get fucked. So all of this stuff, your ego. And it's more than that. So if you have, and I know everybody loves the trait of narcissists, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, relax. Most people don't have NPD. NPD is kind of like a subjective criteria that's been made up anyway. Hey, what's up, Taurus? It's good to see you, lady. Oh, Shantae. I was red-pilled when the girl smelled terrible. Where am I going with this one? Oh, yeah. So the ego. So with your ego, a lot of guys get talked into things they otherwise wouldn't done. Like if, as much as I don't want to like rag on Tater Boy here, it is kind of true. He's telling a bunch of disenfranchised young men, no, you're an alpha male. You got this. It's like the dissident right wing. They have something called Vola, which I don't know if you heard of this guy. He's an Italian neo-fascist author. He's kind of like on par with the Mein Kampf stuff, the Austrian painter. But he made a couple books like Ride the Tiger or the Aristocrats of the Soul or something like that. I haven't read it, but I've seen the people who have read it, and they're just insufferable. The idea that you're a king in secret and nobody knows how special and great you are. And a lot of guys who are angry and insecure just get really resonant with that idea of somebody telling them that they're special. It's like the equivalent of hookers, or escorts, sorry. I'm actually surprised when I found out that most escorts, like, they actually have a lot of not sex. For the most part, they're acting like a shrink for dudes. And it's the whole girlfriend experience thing. Oh, it's okay, babe. You're awesome. That's great. That's wonderful. That's $500, please. And they're like, yeah. They keep handing it over. That's why ASMR channels are taking off. Speaking of which, Taurus is in here. Bulma smell bad. Roshi probably. What the heck are you guys talking about? Yeah, Ride the Tiger. And it's just this whole thing where it's unearned ego. And even if it is earned, dude, I got 33 cars and a Bugatti. Totally earned accomplishment for sure. Throwing it in everybody's faces, you can tell it's like it's a covert contract. Like, I tell you how great I am, and you validate that for me. And it's a lesser form of what I call a narcissistic fantasy, which, if you don't know, is a breakdown originally from Last Psychiatrist, and I've kind of run with it, was the idea that the DSM really gets narcissism wrong as a situation. They describe it by its characteristics, like you would describe a cold. A cold is a cough. A cold is a fever. A cold is watery eyes. A cold means you're too sick to go to work. Well, like a flu has that too. Okay, so a cold is all of those features minus the characteristics of having a flu, or minus fluism. But you see what I mean? That doesn't really describe a cold. That doesn't describe viral infection or anything. That just describes the outward symptoms. And narcissism is the same way. They talk about a grandiose sense of self. They talk about constant need of validation, emotional unpredictability to pathological levels, but that's not really it. Narcissism is our inherent instinct for storytelling run amok. You've essentially made up an identity. Alpha male or lady killer, or, I've slept with 1,500 girls. Every brand that you know of on the internet, like Manosphere and Red Pill brands, if you can quote their brand with like a sentence or two, that's essentially either a manufactured or a real narcissistic fantasy. I'm the pickup artist that slept with 1,500 women. Narcissistic fantasy. I'm the real top G. What color's your Bugatti? Narcissistic fantasy. Now, the thing about the fantasies, and this is why your ego is such a bad force, is that you require what's called narcissistic fuel. You need other people to validate it. Not necessarily like it, but validate it. And that's why most of like the people that are hating on the brand of Andrew Tate aren't actually attacking that narcissistic fantasy. They're encouraging it. You know, the Matrix is coming after me. So as long as they're coming after him, he's not an alpha male, or he's an asshole. He hates women, stuff like that. That feeds into the fantasy too, good or bad, as long as it feeds the narrative. They're just assuming he is a playboy top G. They're assuming he is flying a top jet, and they hate him for it. But he's like, yeah, but they recognize what it is. Same as the other guys. He's a top G, and they want to be top Gs, and they sign onto the marketing course and all that stuff. That's called narcissistic fuel. Now, and this is something that I am surprisingly and deceptively good at, is what's called a narcissistic injury. A narcissistic injury isn't necessarily where you hate on somebody who wants narcissistic fuel for their fantasy. It's where you don't acknowledge the fantasy at all. And this is where stuff like me just acknowledging it's not a top G, the cars are rented, it's like whatever, it's just some fake stuff. That kind of stuff hurts a lot more because, again, narcissism has like a little bit of a healthy downside to it. It's called narcissistic rage. And it's because, and I'm using this as an example. I'm pretty sure Andrews is just manufactured, but whatever. It's a good example because we're all speaking from the same page. Narcissistic rage is when somebody's not feeding that narcissistic fantasy with narcissistic fuel. And then I'm saying, yes, drink every time I say narcissism. And so what happens then is you're attacking somebody's identity. Like, I'm sure you guys have seen every time like a trans person's like, you're not a real woman, they yell at the person, they freak out, or anything of the sort. When they tell Trump he's like not really rich, he gets mad. As soon as you attack somebody's identity, they take it as like a sort of a limbic brain fight or flight thing. And that's the dangerous part because it's called narcissistic rage. It's not anger, it's rage. The difference is pretty clear. Anger is a social emotion. Anger requires a grievance and a pain. And that's why nobody's ever angry by themselves. If you're in traffic, it's not that you got cut off. It's that guy cut you off on purpose. And so you get angry as a social signal to those around you, letting you know, stop effing me over or I'm going to get violent. That's like the base male emotion. Everybody's like, yeah, guys need to express their emotions more. It's like, no, we don't. You don't want that. Because as soon as you start running your mouth, he's going to get cuffy. And I guarantee you that doesn't end well for anybody. So, narcissistic mortification. Brett C., sir, $5 super chat. Well, that's a heartfelt thank you for making me mention the cuck article, sir. Idea. Making audience contents where you can make a new ad for your book. I'd love to. That's not a bad idea, but I'm already running a contest right now on the Digital Ryan Minecraft SMP. We're having a new underwater bases, and so I've got to do the things on that. So I don't have the cycles for it, but in the future, for one of these, that might be not a bad idea. I just have to think of some kind of prize, because just giving you top G status isn't really enough to get you guys devoting work to this. Ben Lynch, $5 heartfelt. No, I will not mention the cuck article super chat. Are we turning the $5 super chat from that cuck article to the Pizza Tate article? Dude, the $5 super chat was ask me about the cuck article. The $5 super chat was, well, Ryan says you didn't send those guys to Culty Bra's place at all. Every career-ending super chat is a $5 super chat, and I always clinch a little bit when I see the 500, and that's why real fans of the channel make it $4.99 or $5.01. I'm totally willing to eat the cost of that penny at the sake of my own mental health. It's cuffing season. Wait, no, stop. Yeah, top above average status. Where was I going with this one? Oh, your ego and the laws of power. So yeah, the laws of power. I'm actually going to be doing a sidebar because it's part of the sidebar, but I haven't actually talked about it yet. Mostly because I don't like it being, there it is. I don't like it being like front and center in most guys' red-pilled thing, because it feeds into that same ride the tiger narcissistic fantasies like laws of power. I am the dark triad, Machiavellian mastermind. You can't stop it. And like, dude, you work at a gas station. Get your shit together. You don't even work out. But the purpose of these is like you read all the 48 laws and then you just forget about them. And then when things come up in your life that have an issue, that maybe things go bad or maybe things go really well, you kind of just, oh, hey, this reminds me of that law. What was it called? And you go look it up. Oh, yeah. So where's a good one here? Law 3, conceal your intentions. Great example. If you're committing crimes, if you're kidnapping girls and leading them in your hacienda, if you're running a Hustlers University scam to swindle money out of guys who are insecure and want to be better, then yeah, don't tell them what you're actually doing. Don't admit on a wiretap that you're committing these crimes and that you're like, my real money is this. Like, no. As far as honestly, if he was smart, what he should have done is tapped into that whole Islam thing. Everything about him would have been Islam. No drinking, no smoking, no having your nuts hanging out of your things. Go fully religious and then keep the grift on the side, on the back end. Activated, $9.99 super chat. Thank you, sir. Good morning, bud. Life is effing sweet, brah. Dude, morning bud to you too, bud. Effing rights, man. Yeah, there's a YouTube terms of service, so I'm saying effing or I cuss under my breath. I'm trying to be more wholesome for the advertisers. I'll let you know if it even works. Actually, you know what? Let me just do something here quickly. I'm going to check, and if it's already been demonetized, then I'm just going to let her fly. But if it's in green, we're going to try and ride this thing out to the end. And we're still green. All right, no more cussing, fellas. And that's what you do. You think about those laws like that. What do we got here? You know, so much depends on reputation. It's like, yeah, maybe court attention at all costs and get others to do the work for you. That's the one that Tate did in spades. Like right now, there are groups of like Hustler University marketing 10, 20, and 30-year-olds or teens, 20 and 30-year-olds that are just out there standing for him 100%. So yeah, getting others to do the PR work for him. It's pretty masterful, actually. Do I want to bring up Law 10? You know what? I'll bring up Law 10. So that's like avoid the unhappy and unlucky. And this was way back before he was anybody. He was just a nobody doing a Forex course that was like small scams. And I remember we did the one thing with him and I was just watching and I'm like, I've known way too many criminals growing up. It's like, nah, man, it's not for me. I'm just going to avoid the unhappy and the unlucky. And right now, I actually kind of feel bad because there's a lot of people that were really integral in the success of Hustlers University. Like they helped push it. They helped bring in new members. They've built a giant relationship on a social media presence. Like the conservatives are all over them now. There's a couple people in the sphere who I actually like, who have kind of ingratiated herself with the brand. Again, avoid the unhappy and the unlucky. Like the friendship, if you want to have a personal friendship, that's fine. But from a branding perspective, I don't know if you want to be involved in this, or maybe you do. I don't know. So here's the other thing. I mean, do not offend the wrong person. Obviously, there's that rumor that Romania is trying to get into the European Union right now. And so the ideas of money laundering and human trafficking doesn't really help their case. So that's the wrong, like those kind of people there, like embarrassing them. They obviously have the power of the state behind them. You don't want to tap into that. And definitely admitting that you bribe cops in the place that's trying to get into the European Union, also not a good idea. But you see what I mean? There's all these like little micro decisions and micro choices you can make that you kind of have to keep the stuff in the back of your mind and not really like pay too much. You're not hyper focused on it. But should I brag about bribing cops? Should I brag about having multiple passports? Probably not. Maybe just put an abstract thing like, look, if you really want to be a top G, what I would suggest, I don't do it, is that you just get multiple passports and bribe police. I've heard rumors that places near Romania that aren't Romania do it. Sometimes right there, it's all you need. Dark Knight Dev. Oh, wonderful, sir. $5, 1 cent super chat. I loved that controlled anger article. It teaches you not to suppress your anger, but to regulate it and to know when to display it and how much to give. Absolutely. That's the thing, too. Narcissistic rage, there's no filter on it. It's 100% from the get-go. But controlled anger, you're still able to use it, but only as much as you need. It's actually similar to the continuum of force that you guys may know police officers and military have, where you always escalate force commensurate with the person that's using force against you. So if they're just standing there being, officer presence, so if they're standing there being intimidating, then yeah, you just move over to, I think it's words. It's been a while since I've seen it, but so you don't automatically go to deadly force when somebody gives you a side eye. And in that way, you're able to temper your responses and you always have something left, because that's the problem. If you come in 100% from the get-go with everything you got and the guy calls your bluff on it, well, you've got nowhere else to go there but deadly force. And that's why you get guys that step on each other's shoes at the movie theater and then ends up with a gunfight. It's because they automatically postured with 100% of everything they got. The other guy calls it out. There's no way to escalate. And the purpose of escalation is great. It's just letting you know, like, this goes as far as you want it to go. I am under control. I have no desire to escalate it further, but I'm not going to back down. And so it allows you to save face and be like, you know what? Sorry about stepping on your shoes, man. The guy's like, hey, thanks. Appreciate it. As opposed to, you stepped on my shoes. Who the hell are you talking to? Bam, bam, bam. Now nobody can watch Batman. You know? To play to people's fantasies. I mean, I'll admit he got Law 32 right. But you see what I mean? Like, there's 48 laws here, and it's... And the funny thing, I love Robert Greene did this. It's almost like The Cube, where you play both sides of a statement at the same time, which I enjoy the consequence of setting it up that way. Like, he'll set up a law, and then he'll set up, like, the exact opposite of the law within the law. So, like, I don't know, Law 2, never put too much trust in friends. But then you'll show an example at the end of that where you do put too much trust in friends and it works. And so what it does is it forces you to be deliberate with your actions and think things through. And I think that's like probably the best Machiavellian lesson he can give in here. Yeah, the rules apply unless they don't apply, but are you smart enough to know when they do and when they don't? Scuffed shoes cost... No, I mixed like 2 or 3 different movie theater shootings at once there. But this stuff does happen. So let me close that off again. Don't need that. Dunka. Yeah, so your ego gets in the way. And that's the thing. When you've been successful for any length of time, you start to think the rules don't apply to you. Because all you've seen now is good examples of, I've run my mouth and nothing happened. I've run my mouth and nothing happened, so I'm going to run it more. And it's not that nothing happened. It's that nobody cared enough to follow up on it yet. Like, as much as everybody likes thinking the manosphere is going mainstream and that, it's an extremely niche thing. Even, who's the biggest guy in the sphere right now? Fresh and Fit, or is somebody bigger than him? I don't even know. But they're what, like 800,000 subscribers? How many people watch their videos? They get maybe 1 million views, of which some of those are multiple views, and that's worldwide. That's a small niche. Like, that's less than the amount of people who watch Law and Order SVU. Have you ever met anybody who watches SVU? No, but there's apparently 1 million of them out there. Apparently 1 million of them out there. Oh yeah, Pearly's just hit 1 million. Do you think anybody outside of the internet knows it? Like, go talk to 10 people you know from work, family, and friends. Ask them if they know who Pearly is. I guarantee you, unless you're like in a small insular community that watches this stuff religiously, everybody will look at you like you got 3 effing heads. Like, what are you talking about? Who the hell? What's a Pearly? And especially me. Nobody knows who the hell I am. Nobody. And I actually kind of prefer that. That's why I always laugh. He's just jealous of his success. It's like, no, man. The last thing I want is to have to go get ramen and get recognized by somebody. That would be cringe. SVU is too serious for me. We know who you are. Oh, whatever, Jack. Whatever. So yeah, your ego, it does not help you. And you have to realize that, like, most guys who get caught doing crimes, it's because they actually had to do something fairly clever or fairly important. Like, I'll never say how I managed to get the things dropped against me and all that stuff went away in that. But, I mean, it was obviously legal and I was just innocent. That was the big part of it. But yeah, most guys get caught when they do something stupid because they want to tell somebody. It's like, dude, this is the smartest thing I've ever done. Like, you need to know how smart I am. And they need that validation from people. And so they'll do something like admit to a cop, yeah, I totally murdered her, but, you know, whatever. Had to do it, but this is how I did it. And this is how you guys didn't catch me. They're like, oh, thanks, man. Now they caught you. So are you smart enough to know it's better to be stupid than it is to be smart and caught? What did you do? I didn't do anything. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not that smart. In the end, whatever heist you pull. But if you do, or if you know somebody who did, and it was a mistake and they made things better, don't talk about it. Shut up. Don't mention it to anybody. Don't brag about it. Don't guiltily confess it off your chest. Here's a good example from something that's a little less serious. Guys who cheat on their partners. They cheat on their partners. Maybe it was a one-time thing. It's after like a year. And there's all these excuses as to why. I don't really care about that stuff. But let's say the guy's like, no, man, not worth it. Never doing it again. What do? They feel guilty about it. And what do they do when they feel guilty about it? Well, their ego's like, well, you got to fess up, man. You gotta take responsibility, and they go to their wives and they admit they cheated and they ask for forgiveness, and they're such selfish assholes, man. Such selfish assholes. Why? Because they feel bad. They dumped all of that guilt, all those emotions onto the girl, and forced her to process and deal with it for him. Is it any wonder that girls like that hate their men and leave them over it? It's like, you did something that I consider horrible, and you didn't even have the common decency to work out the demons on your own. Now you want me to be your judge, your jury, and your executioner? Like, F you, man. F you. Yeah, if you really feel bad about something, apologizing and asking for forgiveness isn't the way to fix that. The way to fix it is to fix it. If you feel bad that you cheated on your girl, you should feel bad. If you didn't want to, but just something happened and you were weak, then yeah, feel bad. You're supposed to feel bad. Feeling bad, feeling guilty is your way of knowing you're not supposed to do things. It's encouraging you to act better. So yeah, you wear that guilt, you do what you got to do, and you get over it, and you make things right, but you don't ask, you don't talk about it, you don't brag about it, you don't, I did all of these things and I need you to forgive me because I can't bother living with the guilt. It's like, that's twice. That's twice you screwed her over. Hope the other girl was worth it, bro. Hope she was worth it. Yeah, like OJ doing interviews talking about his wife that he sent to the Shadow Realm. Yeah. And I get it. He's like, I got away with the murder. I can talk about how clever I am. It's like, no, don't do that. Well, this guy got away with it. Maybe he did. But there's no Netflix series about the 500 guys who didn't get away with it. Just the one that did. That's why it's a Netflix series. If it's not, here's the thing. It's like if you see it on the news and everybody thinks news is reality, it's like, dude, if everybody does it, it's not newsworthy. It's newsworthy because nobody does it. The one time it does happen, they will show it to you. So just remember, anytime you're watching something on the news or social media, that stuff doesn't happen. That's why it's on the news and social media. Just buy her some flowers and take her to a nice dinner and shut up. Yeah. If you really feel bad about it, don't do it again. Don't do it again. If you really feel bad about it, don't do it in the first place. Now, if you don't feel bad about it, let's say you're in one of those sexless marriages, the wife, and you've worked out, you've gotten yourself good, you got frame, you've got game. You're basically a catch by all rights. And your girl's like, I like getting that paycheck every day as a stay-at-home wife, but I don't want to sleep with him. I don't even like him. Most couples get like this, then yeah, go for it. Well, she's not handling my libido. Somebody's got to sort it out. And then you go have a side piece or a mistress or whatever. And yeah, but that's the thing. Now it's not getting caught. And now it's not confession. Now it's like, if you weren't going to do it, somebody has to do it. Just be glad I still want you around and keep the family here. Otherwise, I'd have ditched your ass too. That's one option to do it. And then the girl finds out or something happens. Like, what did you think was going to happen, lady? But you see the difference now? It's not confessing a crime out of guilt. And this is what I always talk about when I talk about blue pill cheating. There's always an underlying seeking of validation and codependency that comes with it. She didn't validate me, so I'm going to get my validation from the first girl that gives me a thing. And then this one catches me, and now this girl's angry, and I feel bad that she doesn't like me, and so I need her forgiveness. It's like, that's a horrible, like, no wonder girls leave dudes that do this. Can you imagine, like, a more pathetic example of, like, male attraction than that? Like, I can't. But as opposed to the one guy, well, you had 2 years to do something about it, and you didn't do it, so I handled it. Like, what did you think was going to happen? What did you think? Well, I just don't feel like it. Well, that's fine then. I handled it. Of course, you wouldn't admit that either, because just telling somebody flat out you cheated gives them some ammunition for a divorce case. And that's why Wine More Please, he actually has a great one, How to Handle Accusation of Affairs 301, where it was like a 3-part. The first one is a girl accuses you of cheating on her, and he says, look, if I'm going to sleep with somebody else, you're going to be the first one to know. Just shut it down right there. And then the 201 was, how did they put it? If you're cheating on somebody, oh yeah, do you really want to know? Do you really want to know? And that one right there is basically saying, well, you weren't doing your job, so I had to do it. And then 301, actually, I can't remember 301. This is the first time I actually had to go look up an article I was referencing. All right, we got it. Hopefully he's in the chat. Maybe he can sum it up for me. 301. There it is. Oh, yeah. 301 is whatever. I just do what I do, man. I'm charming, and if things happen, things happen. Nothing happens, though. It's basically like where it's just the way things are. You treat it like the law of gravity. I don't know. Felt like having fun. Fun just happened. You're awesome. You know the priorities. And that's like a really hard, like not even people who get frame don't get it to that level. Because most of the time when you're at that level of frame, your wife is kind of on board with it. But for some guys, they aren't. And so they're in kind of like this ultimate CAD nether realm where you like truly the dark triad stuff that we're talking about, where it's not even cheating because there's no game, there's no rules, there's no referee. It's just, I get my needs met, and that's just the way things are, and I'm happy about it. And why would you want to leave me? Obviously, I'm a hot commodity. So ego and the laws of power. Let's move on to something else here. I like this one. Actually, you know what? Let's use this one.
We know that these videos really prey on vulnerable young men who have not had many experiences in dating.
Oh, that wonderful lady. She didn't like me or my thoughts or my attitude, and she thought I was evil misogynist. So I'm like, all right, fair enough. Fair enough. Think what you like, madam. I'm not the one shitting on Richest Cooper's zombie approach, which is probably one of the best openers ever. What would you do during a zombie apocalypse? If you're not loading ammo, you belong to the streets, you 304. Is that Aussie? I thought that was English. Excellent. Anyways, what's my next point? I got to get a timestamp here. 1 sec. 120. Dude, we're already at 121. That's crazy. Actually, this is good because I've kind of peppered in the practical application, so I'm not going to make that its own talking point. So we'll just end it off with incompetent, not stupid. I was hoping to end this off at the 90-minute mark, then banter with you guys for a bit, but we'll see what happens. So incompetent, not stupid. And I've kind of already hinted at it, where a lot of people do clever things. They get away with stuff. They have a nice little scam, SBT, or what's that, the crypto one, the Hustlers University one, maybe just some stupid Gumroad course on not jerking off, or anything that essentially promises but doesn't deliver but settles like an emotional need anyway. Most people are too embarrassed to admit they got swindled, so they just kind of let it go, and that's how the guy manages to keep going, because people's embarrassment, right? And that works with girls treating men the way you see in that hypergamous stuff. That works with cops treating criminals, is that they may be incompetent, but they're not stupid. And stupid is what people get away with. Incompetent just means it takes more time. A good example of this is going to be a personal story, which you guys are going to love this. I'm sure somebody will be like making fun of me on Twitter for it, but whatever. Engagement's engagement, right? I remember I didn't know my stepdad was a criminal. Like, you know, chopped cars for the Hells Angels, stuff like that. I just knew we always had like four-wheelers ripping around the house with. Always nice motorbikes, stuff like that. And it turns out all of the stuff was hot goods. All of it. I didn't find out till I was like late teenager, like a senior in high school, and my mom had mentioned it to me. He's like, you realize that? And then my sister was kind of poking fun. You didn't know those things were hot? I'm like, no. I've seen the checks that he pulled when he was working in the cement plant and that. I just thought we bought that stuff. Like, no, he's cheap. He doesn't pay for that stuff. Everything was hot. Everything I ever grew up with was hot goods. And I was like, holy Jesus. And I remember, because it started with, it was this weird story where I'm just sitting at home. It's like a Saturday doing nothing. And he usually works out in the bush for like 12 hours a day and then comes home when he's not schlepping the secretary from the cement plant. But he came home. He just looked at the family. He's like, if anybody asks, I've been in the bush all day. And then he went over to, we had like this airplane hangar in our place that he used to do all the mechanics work in. Our mechanic was down there. And he was like, I guess he was like welding VIN numbers off of vehicles. And I was like, holy Jesus. At that point, I just kind of realized, and I remember you hear bunches of stories like, he got arrested once because he said the cops planted some nose candy in his car. And I'm like, did they? Did they? If you guys don't know, after NAFTA, it kind of really decimated the softwood lumber industry in British Columbia. And so our small logging town, we had a sawmill and 2 pulp mills. And that was most of the jobs people had, like a good working mill job, you know, the wife and the family and the truck, all that stuff. I basically watched it destroy itself in real time. And at some point, like cocaine became huge. The Angels rolled in, drugs became big. And yeah. And so I ended up being immersed in that without really knowing it until later. And there was always just things that happened. And I just assumed, like, I remember my sister was dating this one guy. I met him once or twice. He was all right. He bullied me a little bit once, but I was like 13 at the time or something like that. And I remember hearing her crying one day because he got shot. Like, what? Yeah, some guy he had pissed off. I don't remember why. Went to his house and just and knocked on the door. The guy opened the door and just shot him. And for me, I was like, I had no frame of reference as a kid. I thought everybody doesn't everybody have a murder victim in their family once or twice? Yeah. And this is why I kind of want to give you guys like lessons, or not lessons, but I guess some experience on this one. Because it's not healthy. It gives you kind of a weird, the one benefit of it, I would say, is that you learn what people are really like. Because I know some people have very soft and sheltered and very wholesome lives in communities where nobody does anything wrong or nobody does anything super bad, and they don't know what people are capable of. And that's how you get a lot of people, for example, with Tate doing, like, I'm assuming Tate is guilty of at least some of this stuff. Like, there's no way they made up everything. I could be wrong, in which case, mea culpa, my bad. But a lot of people will like defend this stuff. No, there's no way it's possible. The Matrix is coming after him. And I realize it's because they've never seen anybody act like a petty criminal before. They've never seen anybody act like a dick. They've never seen anybody act like this. So it's not the first criminal that my sister dated, which is fine. She was a horse girl though. So it was always funny because she did a lot of these bad dudes, like the criminal types. And then at some point she'd make them cry and they'd come to my mom for like comfort. My mom would always make friends with them afterwards. And my sister's like, what are you doing? And then but she didn't want to explain that. Like, you realize I'm dating a petty thief, right? And she's just like, whatever. I know, that's just life. And so here's another story. Let's do some story hour stuff. I remember I went home. I was in college, my first year of college. I came back for the summer, that was the last year I did it. And you'll know why in a minute. I guess cocaine was big in my town at first, but then as all the businesses dried up, as the mills closed down, as softwood lumber and NAFTA tariffs kind of took their toll on the community, cocaine went away because it was too expensive, and crack came in. And I came home, and I remember my stepdad was hanging out with this guy. I can say his name now. This guy's name was Blaine. He's dead now. I think it was murder or maybe a heart attack. I can't remember. And they were telling stories. And I realized, like, this is the same criminal thing I was seeing out of Tate, where he was like, they were telling this story about a guy who stole a chainsaw. And they were telling it to me. I'm like 18, 19. I'm like, why are you telling me this story? And it seemed like at the time they thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, what is this cringe? It's like, yeah, the guy stole the chainsaw out of his car or out of his truck. And so I went to his house the next day and I'm like, yeah, bring the chainsaw back. It was some crackhead, right? Just bring the chainsaw back or I'm going to break your arm. And the guy tried denying it and saying, I didn't do it. I did. Bring the chainsaw back or I'm going to break your arm. And so I went to bed that day, and the next day I woke up, I looked in the truck, and the chainsaw was there. So you know what I did then? I went to the guy's house, and I broke his arm. And then he and my stepdad started laughing, and then they're having an argument over it. It's like, dude, you promised you wouldn't break his arm. That's your man honor and stuff like that. He's like, fuck that. He stole the chainsaw. He deserved it. And I was just like, I laugh at this now, but at the time, I assume this is like a horrific story. And this guy, Blaine, was big. He's like 6'7", 300 pounds. So he's like not a small man. And I remember that's when I learned like how sour crack smelled. And it was the weirdest feeling ever. And I remember after that, I was like, I'm going to rebel against the family. I'm going to college and getting a real career. But like my whole childhood was like tons of events like this. This is just one of the funnier stories that I remember. But there's hundreds of them. And I know at the end of this, when I talk about incompetent, not stupid, yeah, the cops were very incompetent. Like the antics that he pulled off to get away with doing stuff were so juvenile and so obvious, but they're not there. They don't know how to deal with it. They don't know the people. They don't know how they think. And so they're generally incompetent when it comes to punishing things. Like he never did get caught. And he always bragged to his friends, but he never bragged like publicly. But they didn't have social media in my small town, so who cared? But the thing is, they weren't stupid. Like they knew what was going on. They just weren't competent enough to prove it. And so the worst thing you can do, if you do something particularly smart that hurts feelings or breaks laws, is talk about it, is brag about it, because you want people to know how smart you are. And I would say this, identity politics, yes, everybody sees how bad it is when it comes to woke people doing wokey stuff. But just remember, that's like a real human condition issue, creating an identity of how clever a criminal you are or how top a G you are, that you want to open your mouth about it. Just don't. Let them think you're stupid. Well, what if they think you're stupid? What if they think you're a beta male? What if they think you're a hater? What if they think you're jealous? I'm like, who fucking cares? Did you get yours? Yeah? Then shut the fuck up and enjoy it. But I need them to know. You don't need them to know. It's people, especially social media, people you don't know, probably don't like, and wouldn't piss on if they were on fire, have nothing to offer you, generally shitty people, don't like you. Oh my God, they don't even hate you. They hate whatever emotive projection they put onto you. Do you really think you're going to persuade them into thinking better of you because you told them a cool story about how you did something wrong? Or do you think they're going to take that knowledge and dox you and harass your family, possibly get you arrested, take away your 33 cars, and ruin your whole kidnapping compound? No. Yeah, hubris comes before the fall. Yeah. Do you want to win or have everybody know you won? That's a great way of putting it, Baron. And look, I honestly hope you guys seem like a swell bunch of guys. You're one of the least autistic people or autistic audiences in this space at all. I hope and assume you're never going to have a situation where you have to worry about criminal charges, where you have to worry about social media tar and feathering, where you have to worry about a cheating whore girlfriend that's a hooker in the background with her OnlyFans account. I hope you guys live long and happy lives where all of this eventful shit never happens to you, ever. I really do. But take from these extreme examples ways that you can mitigate small, petty criminal activities or small, petty relationship activities and just learn from stupid people. Remember, cops are incompetent, but they're not stupid. People are competent, but very stupid. Between the two of those guys, the system just keeps chugging along. More dudes go into jail. More guys replace them. More guys have stupid stories of their sisters dating drug dealers getting shot. And you just don't want any part of it. Trust me, it sounds exciting. I know a lot of guys love it. Oh, the top G. I love the outlaw, Jesse Wales, criminal outlaws. It's like, dude, the only people I've ever seen that cheerlead criminals are people that have never committed crimes or never been around people who committed crimes. Best example, I love like Ed Lattimore. He talks about, living around the projects and stuff like that. Did you ever notice that every dude who moves out of the projects and makes something of his life doesn't even listen to rap music anymore? They're like, I don't want no part of that criminal nonsense. I don't want no part of none of that. Yeah, it's Terry Bollea marking out for Hulk Hogan. Absolutely. And you realize it's just emotions. It's just ego. It's just identity. Yeah, big dude, good guy. There's a copper I beat up in jiu-jitsu. He acts all timid when we roll. It's funny. Yeah, I bet. But that's the thing. I think criminality only sounds cool when you have no exposure to it. So take a lesson from people who, and this is where it comes back to that point, you must put this bucket on your head right now. It's a great post by Whisper I've talked about where, is that feather on my, what the hell is that? Oh, it is fluff. Didn't even know. I thought it was like dust on the screen this whole time. You guys are sitting there probably staring at it with your OCD. Yeah, some of these guys are very boring individuals, so they seek tingles, fulfilling bombastic personalities. Honestly, it's why I really do think, well, maybe not today, but 10 years ago, if you'd asked me, I'd have said mandatory military service for everybody. Not because of it builds character or national whatever, but just because guys need to have some excitement and danger in their lives so they learn how wonderful a boring, a quiet life is. Dude, I love it. Since leaving the military, leaving Montreal, moving to Toronto, I have a nice, boring life right now. And this is me bragging, I get it, but just take this for what it's worth. I live a nice, boring life. I go to bed at 9 o'clock. I wake up at 6 in the morning. Sometimes I get up early, like at 4:30, and I watch the sunrise, drink some coffee, blast fanfare for the common man on the stereo just because it feels fun. I have 3 dogs. We walk to the park. We take walks together at the park like old British people. And it's uneventful, and we cook food, and we add jalapenos to it. That's the excitement right now, and I love it. No more bullshit, no more nonsense. It's just, it feels good. It's like swords to plowshares kind of thing, And I really feel, I don't want to say I feel bad, but I don't know how else to word it. So I feel bad for guys who have never gotten it out of their system or never seen the consequences of that kind of lifestyle. And so they latch onto it way too old. So I do hope these rather personal, kind of embarrassing stories that I've been telling you guys and some of the examples I've given you from the latest news cycle at least let you know it's like, you know what, boring's not bad. Maybe a little manufactured outrage to keep your girl interested in that, but yeah. Do you really need to have somebody crying and freaking out? Get rich or die trying forever. I mean, what do you need the money for? Yeah, here, Jimmy. Growing up in a third world country gives you an appreciation for life. I'd rather struggle in Canadian dollars than in my home country. I agree. And the best part about it is it turns down the volume on everything else, man. Like, I've seen people just lose their shit over shit posts on Twitter. This mother, and I'm like, nobody got shot. I can have guy give me the worst vitriol. There's guys that have like hours of content on YouTube describing in great deal how much of an ass I am, and I'm just like, it's could be worse. At least they're talking about me, but you can just laugh at it, and that's another thing with frame. Experience helps you build frame. Dark Knight Dev, another cuck article, Dev. That's twice. You should know better, sir. You should know better. I've lived in the hood my whole life and still do. Had a barber who I used to go to every week that got robbed and deleted. Nothing fun about a funeral. I agree, man. Not a fan of it at all. Growing up as a yuppie in Chicago allowed me to see crazy stuff without having to live it. Dude, that's the luckiest thing ever. Where you get to watch it happening around you and not go for it. Like, I'm actually impressed that even myself, I managed to avoid all of it. But I kind of want to blame the blue pill thing where like you hate your stepdad stuff. That's where I rebelled against the family and went to university and then joined the military. I'm out of here. Last thing I want to do is be this asshole. Yeah, hey coach, you should make an ad with Hulk Hogan flexing in an audio clip of Top G in the background. I'd love to, but yeah, if I start making Hulk Hogan ads, that's a huge legal risk that I'm not willing to take. See you folks on the flip side. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys on this one. I hope you take some lessons from it. Again, I'll be back to like red pill stuff. This was more of like a Ryan Stone, let you know how things go, how the world works, a little bit of back in my day. So I hope you learned from it. And it's nice to see, like, most of you guys aren't stupid either, right? Like, you guys have all got, thankfully, less experience than I do on this side of things. Thank God. But it's good to see you have enough exposure to it that you kind of, like, you get it. It resonates with you. I maybe have helped you, like, understand it in a different perspective, and that's all I can ask. All I can say is, like, a lot of guys aren't, and they're going to self-destruct. Either they're the criminals that you're going to learn from, or they're the boring suburban guys that are going to learn from the criminals. Just let them burn, man. You can't help them. Maybe offer a quick, like, I don't know, man, if that's such a good idea, but if they decide, like, shut up, you don't know what you mean, old man, you're like, sounds good. Let me just step to the side here and wish you luck. I'll be over here with the cell phone camera chanting World Star while you get stomped, you know? Doug Chisholm, sir, $99.99 super chat. Thank you, Ryan, for sharing your experiences and knowledge on YouTube and books. Dude, thank you for supporting. Like I said, you've been around for a long time, and I know your story, and it's honestly, it's a heartwarming story of a guy picking himself up by his bootstraps and making something of his life without having to have some big hero's journey on it. It's just small, incremental steps to achieve a goal with deliberate action, and I always love it. Like, everybody's like, oh, isn't the Manosphere great if it was like a Rocky montage? I'm like, no, man. I want it to be a C-SPAN Senate hearing over a public funding of like a statue. I want it to be the most boring shit ever. I want it to have no bravado, no fanfare, none of this, like no music swelling in the background. It's not a movie, it's life. And matter-of-fact boredom of it is what makes it so rewarding and so fulfilling, because then you realize, like, you don't have to be super energized and emotional. You just got to do some shit. Do some shit, solve some problems, go get laid, and have fun, you know? Anyways, not a BPD girlfriend or some crap like that. Been there, done that. Yeah, exactly. Actually, I'm impressed. There's been a lot less autism than I expected in the chat today. Thank you, moderators. You've been doing some great jobs. I've been noticing the work you're doing in here, so yeah. Remember to use the community tab to add your guest upcoming collabs. I think it was you that brought that to my attention. So yeah, I did that. Go check out the Chrissy Mayer interview. That one was kind of nice. It's funny too. Allie got me after. She's like, "You didn't tell me they tried charging me with a lot of stuff in the military. Heck, I have my case file. It sits right here. Every day. Occasionally I'll look up. I'm like, oh yeah. That's the only other thing I'll suggest, I guess, is that if you end up going through hell and getting out of it and coming back, try to keep a memory of it around, because we're really good at forgetting the bad times, remembering the good times. Of course I still have the resignation letter, dude. Why would I not have that? It's no longer framed on my wall, but I got it. I mean, you just don't throw that stuff away. How often do you get a commanding officer saying you're an asshole, but he needs you? It's like, not often. Have you worked with autistics, Ryan? Do you know what I do for a living now? Mishy's been putting work in today, so thank him. Oh, that's good. Yeah. But it's good. So yeah, never forget. And this is one thing I suggest to guys too. It's like after you've been doing field reports, you've been through Red Pill for a year, maybe you fixed your marriage, maybe you got laid for the first time and now you're a Lothario. Like all those successes, it's like go back and take a look at some of the stuff where you used to be, because I've seen way too many content creators that were like down on their luck, like the worst of the worst Red Pill. And then they fix their marriages, they fix their lives, and then all of a sudden they forget about all that stuff in the past, because that's how we're done. Deployment, great example for this. I had the great idea of journaling it. I want to write a book, and I'm going to write about all my journeys on the thing. I had some naval logs and everything, and every day was horrible. The whole deployment was just trash. It was stressful. It was overworked. People were petty. People were stupid. I hated every minute of it. But like 6 months later, and my buddy was like, I've been on 6 deployments. This is the worst one I've ever been on. And I'm like, you know what? 6 months after all this is over, we're going to forget about all this nonsense. All we're going to do is remember the good time we had in Dubai at the rock bottom, the time those Iranians were throwing bricks at the Palestinians in that car, in the Ferrari, the time in Croatia we went diving at the island of Bol, the casino when we met those Croats, where your boss tried to argue with them because he was Croat and they were Slav or something like that. And like that's the stuff, time in South Korea those girls ditched all their boyfriends to party with us for a weekend. The time you passed out in the bar in Japan and they just brought you coffee in the morning and treated it like it was a normal thing. The time you got drunk with that businessman in that whiskey bar and just watching baseball for 2 hours and neither one of you spoke the other's language. The only words you knew in common were like itashiwa and baseball. Good. Nick Caranjo, $5 super chat. Good show, man. Shut the fuck up. Been a struggle for me my whole life. It is. I'm not saying it's easy either. So yeah, but don't worry, you'll make it. I'm assuming you've been making it now. But yeah, you're doing well. And sure enough, man, 6 months after the deployment was over, nobody remembered any of the bullshit. And if I didn't write it down in a journal, I would have forgotten myself. And I remember that. Because a lot of guys were like, dude, I want to go on another deployment. And I remember reading through them like, I don't think you'll like it, man. Because they're all, and it turns out the next ones were just even worse. Like they were all getting worse. It turns out the military without a Cold War terrorist threat is really not very fun. Art Vandelay, £4, 99 pounds. Just bought the book. Keep up the good work. Hey, if you guys keep buying the books, I'll keep writing them. If you guys keep watching the videos, I'll keep making them. All I can do is make sure they're as good as I can possibly do and keep you entertained as much as I can. And I'll do my part and you do yours, right? Yeah, first you teach kids to talk and then you have them just shut up. Yeah. So just remember that. So for a lot of guys, they forget about their trials and tribulations and all their red pill issues. And then they start talking about, trad family bullshit. And you're like, no, man, go back. Remember how bad things were and never forget it. I'm not saying dwell on it. I'm not saying revel in it. I'm just saying never forget. Never forget, sir, 9/11. What was your personal 9/11? Never forget. Because then you always have that in the back of your mind. Like when I say hate your woman just a little bit, remember when she was at her worst. It's pretty much dealable now. Like now you've got the skills that you can handle a lot better, but never forget. So when you see her now and she's perfect and great and she loves the new red pill you and stuff, just remember it's like, yeah, it wasn't always this way. So it took some work and took some effort. It'll build a little bit of pride in the effort, Yeah, I make an effort to include both wins and losses while journaling. Yeah, pretty much. Anyways, so that's it for you guys. At this point, we got some Bantz. 143. Bantz. I don't have any plans of collab stuff. I'll reach out to Adam if he wants another guy. So we'll see one of these Mondays here if you'll have me again, which he asked before. So hopefully I haven't said no too many times. Zertis, I want to give a proper devotion to one of his MK Canadas. Those are always fun. And I feel bad. Paul's RB topic worth it today. I think we're talking about beating women. Honestly, it's in reference, like the starting point was that Dana White fighting his wife thing, the Octagon husband-wife team. And then we're going to carry on from there. So it's up to you if you like that kind of content. I would say check it out. But I mean, I'm biased. I think you should check out all of them. Yeah, can't complain. Might get a new in real life client. Oh, that's good. So yeah, it's up to you if you want to enjoy that kind of thing. Like I said, I'll be there. So, and then beyond that, don't forget Digital Ryan. It's a fun little channel. A little Minecraft, a little bit of Terraria, there's some games, the T-Rex army. It's just nice because it's like, I know a lot of guys are into watching live stream gaming stuff, Twitch and YouTube and that, and everybody on there is soy and everybody on there is woke and all the girls are e-girls, and it's just hard to get into some of the stuff. So sometimes just watching grown men banter with each other can be just like the enjoyment that a guy needs to carry it over. So any new gen wrestlers you like, Coach? Oh, I don't know. Maybe somebody. That was Brian's Christmas gift to me. It's always funny. I'm like, thanks, bro. That's actually pretty awesome. You're the first time I brought a naked man into my house and enjoyed it. He's like, yeah, that's what I do. Irony, he's coming out with a slapping competitive rim after hitting his wife. Maybe it was promo. Hitting his wife back, to be fair. So we're going to end this show right after this. Levy Watson super chat, $4.99 chat. Thank you for getting it, sir. Much better than regulars of the channel not putting that $5 mark. Any advice for finding other sane men in your local area? I live in Orange County, California, surrounded by soy. Look, you're not alone. And honestly, I find what happens is as you be the change you want to see, act like you want to act, be how you want to be, like obviously knowing the consequences. Getting in there talking about Trump and like an Orange County communist thing's probably not smart, but there'll always be tells. Like guys who think like you and act like you and want to associate with guys like you, they'll pick up on the tells. And you guys, as long as you put yourself out there and as long as you act congruent, you'll tend to find each other. Like the Rule Zero guys, we kind of almost found each other by accident just by being normally well-adjusted people. And you're going to run through a lot of people that you don't like, a lot of your Anthony Johnson, Brunos and that. Ryan, still can't get the book on Kindle. Can you not? That's weird. Here, let me look. It's co.uk. But yeah, so for the most part, and that's the thing, if you don't find people like you want to hang out with, it could be a case that you're just not interesting enough for them to make it known. Yeah, accept cookies, continue. It says here I can get it. I go to the UK site on Amazon. Here, try this link. Leo, $1.79 super chat. I was asking about masking because do you see the Sigma movement as autistic maskers? Oh, that, I don't know. It's just the masking is kind of, it's a social flex. It's not really a medical flex, but whatever. Anyways, let's throw one last ad on here. Who do we want to make fun of? Is it this one?
Boom, what's up, fam? Got some big news to
it's
share
this one.
that unfortunately is not so good, so I'm gonna jump right into it. You're gonna watch this video and you're gonna cry. At least we can laugh at your eyes as you cry, looking in the corner like a little f***ing girl in the fetal position.
Calling it, boys. Have fun.
$79T, 2458, Learning Corp, Little Red Riding Hood, take one.